Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Peter Downing. He's the founder of Wexit Canada. His website, wexitcanada.com. Welcome back to the show, Peter.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
Peter, what's the latest with Wexit Canada?
We are very close now to our eligibility for registration as an official party with Elections Canada. So right now, we've obviously, beginning of November, we submitted our application for registration, and now Elections Canada has mailed out confirmation letters to all of our members, and our members have to fill them out and send them back, and once we hit the proper number, then we'll have the eligibility for registration. So as soon as we run a candidate in an election or a by-election or a member of parliament crosses the floor, then we'll have our official party status.
Now, is this federally or provincially?
Federally. So we will be representing the 4 Western Canadian provinces only.
Now, you're collecting signatures in Alberta. Are you collecting signatures in Alberta and Saskatchewan to form provincial parties?
Yes, we are. So we are collecting a required number in Alberta and in Saskatchewan. British Columbia is a little bit different. There is Elected BC, and the election rules are a little bit different. They just have to basically fill out the paperwork. I don't think there's any signature requirement there. And then Manitoba, we're talking with one of the smaller groups, but we're also prepared to go and collect the signatures in the second part of 2020 to get them registered.
How are you being treated by the mainstream media, online media, and social media?
International media. I think we were just recently, the most recent was we're on Bloomberg in Australia and New Zealand. The international media tends to report things quite factually. They don't necessarily have all the inside details, and maybe what they're reporting is from observation, but I think they do a fair job. The mainstream media in Canada is, there's only been, I think, 1 or 2 interviews actually 3 interviews I can think of where I received open hostility from the interviewer. There's always this kind of slant, whether it's to downplay our numbers or whether it's to, now the new tactic seems to be that Wexit is hurting Alberta's business reputation, which, and even the politicians have to come out and say it afterwards, is that Wexit is a response to Justin Trudeau's destructive economic policy. It's not the cause of it. So we see that. So there's always that glance from the mainstream media. Again, when you're being funded $600 million, people know where their bread gets buttered. On social media, it's a mix, because obviously we have strong, diehard supporters. You've got people who are in the middle, and then you've got people who are strongly against. And social media is really the place where all of that gets to come together in a bit of a free flow format. So, but the support for the approach that we're taking and the business decisions that we're making as an organization is good. Sometimes needs a little bit more explanation, but that's just the same as any other political party. We have to excel and always improve continuously in terms of our communication with our base.
Mm-hmm. Are measures being taken that you won't be embarrassed by somebody who represents the party?
Well, we got, it was interesting. Early on, Vice released an article claiming that there was, I'm a far right guy and a white supremacist, and the people in my organization are And they they obviously didn't do their vetting and their checking to check their facts. And the person they referred to in that article was not a member of our organization. I think staffing decisions, and it's probably not so much anybody's going to say anything stupid. It's to make sure that we have people who are here for the right reasons. I've been to a recent policy convention, annual general meeting for another political party. I had a membership; it was just running out. I was suggested that I go down and check it out. And it's kind of like watching snakes gyrate over each other. People are willing to step over their own mother sometimes to get a little bit higher in the organization. And that's the kind of sentiment that we try very, very hard to root out and to not let in the first place. But when we find people who are devious or callous or power hungry or those types of things, and they're putting themselves and their own ego and their own promotion before the next logical steps of organization building, we do what we can to get rid of those people as quickly as possible.
Yesterday we had People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernie on the show. He says Canada needs to stay together and the People's Party platform can make that happen. Your thoughts on that?
Folks from the People's Party of Canada reached out to me some time ago and wanted to get the sense of our interest in either merging or being absorbed into their organization. The reality is that, and people, and those, the same higher level folks with the People's Party of Canada recognize that we have the same platform. We're virtually the same type of conservative, and that conservative libertarian, less government, personal freedom mix. And the reality is that the People's Party of Canada does not work in Eastern Canada because Eastern Canada is moving more and more socialist. Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, aging populations, heavy government subsidies, heavy government social transfers. They do not want the types of freedom that we want in Western Canada. They want government to take care of them, and unfortunately it comes at our expense. So the People's Party of Canada platform does not work at the federal level. We've seen it. We've seen the results in the last election, and in Western Canada it's a little bit different because of the referendum was on trying to kick out Justin Trudeau, and Western Canadians are pragmatic. But basically, in a nutshell, the People's Party of Canada platform is not appealing to Eastern Canadians. The reason I think that we've had this success with Wexit is because we recognize where our target market is, and we appeal to our target market, and we do not have to pander to Ontario and Quebec. And I respect the People's Party of Canada insofar as that they were just as open about their platform in those places, but for those reasons, it didn't work.
And of course, Maxime Bernie now has a lawsuit against Warren Kinsella because it's claimed Kinsella had an active campaign paid for by the Conservatives to paint Bernier as a racist.
Yeah, I heard that too. It's unfortunate. I've never had the opportunity to meet Maxime personally. We had sent a couple text messages back and forth, but I don't think anybody objectively looking at him thinks that he's a racist. I never saw Maxime Bernie running around in blackface 2 or 3 times.
And yourself, Peter, when you have people accusing that you're some kind of a white supremacist, what's usually your answer?
Well, my answer to that is that it's been said, one of the theories about depopulating the white race. I said, well, I guess I'm contributing to that too. My wife's not white and our kids are mixed. So it's pretty absurd to claim any racism on my part. And the reality is, it's the political left that are so obsessed with race. They're the racist ones. Like none of us would ever dream up something called the Indian Act. I never, the White Guy Act, the Black Guy Act, the Muslim Guy Act. Nobody would ever think of that. But we've got the Indian Act, or in Quebec they got Bill 21. People in our party. I'm starting to think of some of our Sikh members. Those who'd be running for member of parliament positions, if they were in Quebec, they couldn't wear their headdress in public service. So I'm not interested. I'll just point out every single time that Quebec is the largest, most ungrateful, welfare racist province that there is. The government of Canada has been racist for 152 years, and their prime minister runs around in blackface. and he gets a pass. The reality is this whole racism argument is used by the political left to dominate the political right. Because those of us who are hardworking, decent people who don't take other people's stuff on the political right, we're not racist, and we actually care about human rights, and our cops and our soldiers put themselves in harm's way to defend those rights. So the reality is we're sensitive to that charge precisely because we're not racist. But the political left, they can say and do whatever they want because they are racist, and they'll continue to exploit that weakness that we have to try to, that we spend all our time trying to say that we're not racist. Well, let's just point out the fact the political left is racist.
We'll have more with Peter Downing right after the break.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the 2019 drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Peter Downing. Peter, Boris Johnson was just re-elected Prime Minister of Britain to make Brexit happen. Do you think Wexit can mirror the success of Brexit?
I think so. I definitely think so. Whether it be how the Brexit Party cleaned up at the European Parliament in one of the most recent European elections, or the pressure that they put in place to give that overwhelming mandate to Boris Johnson. And so Nigel Farage and the work he's done over the past 20 years in his organization, and the desire of regular Britons to be free of overregulation, overtaxation by unaccountable bureaucrats in Brussels, Belgium, I think it's fantastic, and I'm very happy. My parents actually come from Britain. I'm very happy to hear the results of that, and I think Nigel Farage deserves to be commended roundly for the work that he's done.
Do you think Westerners are more open to the idea of a new party? Because I think about Alberta, which was so cred, then conservative for so long, then all of a sudden you have the Wildrose Party in Saskatchewan. They created the Saskatchewan Party to perhaps look after local interests better. Do you think that means Western Canadians are more open to new political ideas?
I think Albertans have been let down consistently. The Saskatchewan Party, I mean, that was a merger between the Liberals and the Conservatives in Saskatchewan to stop the NDP from getting in. And I think that's a very good thing, and it has helped their province in terms of what the province can do provincially. Albertans want to have, we want to have our problems solved, and the big problem right now is the Canadian Confederation. The big problem is now is that we recognize now for the first time that our vote in Alberta does not count. The Western camp does not count. So people are realizing that now, and they're looking for anything that can solve their problem, whether it be the legislated shutdown of industry, whether it be firearms bans, whether it be increased carbon taxation, whether it be unilateral, international deals that erode our sovereignty. And each of those problems, the province do not have an underfunded military, that the provinces don't have the ability to fix on their own. I think this is what people are starting to recognize now, and there's a need for it. So all we're doing with Wexit is filling that demand. And I think just like customers, any kind of customer service, or if you've got a craving for salt and vinegar chips, and nobody's selling salt and vinegar chips, it's going to be the first person who comes along who sells salt and vinegar chips that are credibly packaged, that have a quality control, that are at a reasonable price, they're going to buy the stolen mineral chips. So I think we're going to see the same thing politically in Alberta as well. I like stolen mineral chips, by the way, so that's why I use that analogy.
What is the Clarity Act, and what does it mean for Wexit?
So the Clarity Act is the basically the legislation that in 2000 Parliament passed legislation to so-called clarify the Supreme Court secession reference case of 1998, which was the ruling on the rules of the rules of engagement by which a province can separate after the 1995 Quebec referendum, which was basically a wildcat referendum in one sense. But in the other sense, what the Clarity Act does, a number of things. It says that a province can leave the Confederation if there's a clear majority on a clear question, and Parliament has the ability to determine if it's a clear majority, and then is obliged to negotiate the terms of exit with the province. So I think part of it is definitely it's aimed towards Ottawa, and that clear question. I don't think it makes sense to have a referendum then to have the federal government decide. I think that they need to decide what that number is, whether it's a percentage of the population, what their number is, and then we can have a referendum. Because part of the Supreme Court decision says that if the government negotiates in bad faith, that creates the grounds for possible for a unilateral declaration of independence. So it would definitely be bad faith to say, okay, have a referendum first, then we'll decide. No, good faith would say, here is what the benchmark is, then have your referendum. So we'll be taking that. If we obviously it depends on the confidence of the electorate to give us a mandate to do that in an upcoming general election, and we recognize that it's strategically more advantageous to get that question answered first and then to hold the referendum, because again, if the government doesn't do that, then I think they're negotiating in bad faith, and then that would set the ground for unilateral declaration of independence.
Is one of the reasons for frustration in the West is that the population is underrepresented? You look at how many MPs and senators little Prince Edward Island gets, which is the size of a moderate city, and then look at how many people it takes to elect one MP in Western Canada.
Well, it's huge. I live in the riding in all of Canada that has the least representation. We have one member of Parliament for 177,000 people, and Prince Edward Island, as you referenced, has one member of Parliament for 38,000. So the Prince Edward Islanders' vote's about 5 times as valuable as mine, for one. And you have this kind of imbalance all across the country, and Alberta is hit the worst, that's for sure. So part of the discussion in Eastern Canada, they can start to have it now, because they have the ability, if they want to have equal elected effective Senate, have a proper seat count, kill the carbon tax, Bill C-69, Bill C-48 on fair equalization, and have actual free trade, and allow us to have pipelines from coast to coast to coast, then that's the discussion they need to have now, because what we can control is our ability to stay or to separate, and we're going to march towards separation.
We'll have more with Peter Downing right after this.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Peter Downing. Peter, at NATO last week, President Trump referred to Prime Minister Trudeau as two-faced. Your thoughts on that statement?
No, it was brilliant. I mean, whether it's what Mr. Trudeau did, speaking in meek terms to Mr. Trump to his face, or mocking him like a schoolboy behind his back at recess, that's one play on it, or whether it be that he can dress up in blackface one day and then claim to be a big champion of racial equality or fighting against racism on another day. I thought it was brilliant.
The RCMP are refusing to confirm or deny whether Trudeau is under investigation for possible obstruction of justice. Why would they refuse to confirm that he's not under investigation?
I don't know. I think to the credit and my antipathy towards the RCMP is public knowledge. But to their credit, perhaps it may be because it is a politically sensitive investigation, and they actually did affect the outcome of the 2006 election when they released that Ralph Goodell was under investigation, and that was also believed to have tipped the election in favor of the Conservatives. Obviously, we're after the election now, and how a question of him being under investigation could affect domestic relations, international relations, that kind of stuff. I don't have he should be under investigation. Obviously, what he did, and we've seen the results of SNC-Lavalin recently, and the guilty findings and all that side of stuff. And we know that he was backing a corrupt corporation, and he did, and was found to have interfered in the Jody Wilson-Raybould's mandate, and fired her afterwards. So he should be under investigation. So whether the RCMP chooses to release that information or not, I don't necessarily think that's a black mark on the RCMP. I think at this point, though, given the level of political interference, it might be prudent to say that he is under investigation, if that's the case, so that the public can ensure that the investigation is carried out objectively.
Well, I just know from my own experience as a reporter, if you ask the police, is this happening? And when they say, I can neither confirm nor deny that, that's a yes. Because
you know what you can do right now, if you really wanted to find out? Do a ATIP request. Access to information and privacy request. Because if it comes back and says no record found, then there's no record. But if it says the matter is under investigation, then you know there's an investigation. So that's the way you do it. Do it through an access to information request through the federal government to the RCMP. Ask, we want any and all documents related to any criminal investigation of Justin Trudeau by the RCMP between, 2017 and 2019. So the response comes back and says no records found. Then there's no investigation. And if it comes back and it says that we can't release that information because it's under investigation, then you got your answer right there.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who was born in Peace River, Alberta, the same little town 500 clicks north of Edmonton I grew up in, she's taking on more and more of the Prime Minister's duties. Do you think that's a way to try to placate Western alienation?
I think that politicians need to start understanding that it's not a popularity contest. And I get this sense, whether it's on the conservative side or the liberal side, this idea that, if you're from Peace River, people are going to be happy and people are going to like you, and you're one of us. I don't think that's the case. Whether it's somebody who was born here, and the reverse true, being somebody, myself, coming to Alberta in 2006 when I joined the Mounted Police. This is where I met my wife, had my kids, found my faith, and I'm very indebted to my friends and neighbors in this province. And when I left Ontario, I never wanted to go back. I escaped. I grew up liking guns and trucks and all that kind of stuff, and it was weird for me growing up there. So the reality is people come from all over the world and from all across Canada, North America, to Alberta because it is the best place on planet Earth to live, to work, to raise a family, a business, and to have opportunity. So Chrystia Freeland is a Torontonian. She was elected by Torontonians to represent, I think, Toronto-Rosedale. I think that's her writing. She is a Torontonian. And she is not an Albertan. If she's a member of Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party, she does not represent the values of Alberta. Definitely made manifest in the fact that Albertans 100% rejected the Liberal Party in the last election. So this idea that she can come here and it's going to smooth it over. No, because we're going to see what she does. She has been given the mandate to execute Justin Trudeau's mandate here, and nothing good can come from that.
Do you think Canada's deep state would allow Wexit to happen?
I think the Canadian political institutions. It was awesome, actually. A newspaper article came out, said meet your masters, or meet the Laurentian elite, and talked about their mediocrity. And I think that I spent time in the police, in the military, got to work alongside intelligence units and things like that. And I think at the end of the day, people are people, and there is an incipient mediocrity in Canada. And I think there's factors definitely beyond their ability to manage a situation, whether it be legally or illegally. Obviously, we know that the Trudeau himself is engaged in illegal behavior with SNC-Lavalin. So I wouldn't put it past bureaucrats and government operatives who want to maintain the status quo. But there's factors beyond their control at this point that I'm not at liberty to say. That we're confident that we're going to achieve independence from Canada according to all internationally enforceable law.
Do you think the U.S. would interfere if it looked like Western Canada was about to separate?
I think the United States has all the incentive in the world to work with independent Western Canada or an independent Alberta. And the biggest issue is the development of the Northwest Passage. Let's not talk about lax Canadian law enforcement. We talk about having better border and border security, making sure that unwanted or illegal people aren't crossing the American border. Illegal, unwanted drugs aren't crossing the American border and poisoning Americans. And whether it be meeting and exceeding the 2% GDP requirement for NATO on military spending, or whether it be again cooperation in the development of the Northwest Passage. That's the biggest geopolitical issue in the world right now, and the government in Ottawa has taken a hostile position, a contrarian position to the American position, and we say, well, we can cooperate. We can cooperate in better integration between Alaska and the lower 48. We can cooperate on commercial, economic, diplomatic, security development of the Northwest Passage. So the Americans have all the incentive in the world, whether it be a Republican or a Democratic administration, to support an independent Western Canada.
If it looks inevitable that Western Canada will separate, do you think people in the West will move east?
I think some people in the West will move east. I think a lot of hardworking, decent, conservative people, liberty-minded people in the East will move west, and when we look forward to having them.
Have Canadian politicians been selling off Canada to China, and is that a crime?
Ooh, good question. Well, it looks like it. It looks like whether it be the $42 billion LNG Kitimat project that cut out Western Canadian labor, give $42 billion check to China, whether it be even musing about allowing Huawei to deliver our 5G network. Again, development of the Northwest Passage, the hostility towards slipping my mind right now, the Free Hong Kong protests. So they definitely, it looks like the little potatoes in the pocket of the administration of China. Is it a crime? Well, it should be a crime. I think treason, according to the criminal code, has a very defined, definition. So I don't think that Mr. Trudeau meets that definition. Which would be actively supporting a foreign state that tossed out Canada in wartime. There's high treason. You look up in the criminal code. Sabotage might be a little bit more appropriate. Definitely economic sabotage for sure. The idea of telling us that our oil and gas is dirty, British Columbia, you can't harvest your trees, and then selling all that stuff off to foreign entities, or allowing Dubai to have ownership over the ports in Prince Rupert. So, I think that those are, whether it hits the legal definition of treason or sabotage, certainly the spirit feels like that. Absolutely. The spirit of the law, it feels like that, giving $10.5 million to a convicted terrorist, these kinds of things. I mean, I'm not referring to China at this point, but I think those things definitely, and people aren't calling Trudeau a traitor for no reason whatsoever. I think that Western Canadians have I think that's a very valid concern. I think we should have laws in place I think we need to have better defined laws to stop that from happening again, and the ability to enforce it, and the ability to convict upon it.
Well, here in BC at election time, we have open Chinese government organizations contributing money to politicians. They had a hospitality suite at the BC Municipalities Union meeting. I mean, they openly are trying to influence our politicians. Should that be allowed?
No, it should not be allowed. Not whatsoever. I mean, we could get into a breach of trust or corruption of officials. And those are crimes. And I think they need to be investigated and enforced as such when you're allowing a foreign entity to openly influence our elected politicians this way, in a way that is hostile to the political and economic interests of Western Canadians. Even the freedom interests. And again, it's not just the Liberals. Mr. Harper, before Mr. Trudeau, signed, I think it was a 34-year Foreign Investment Protection Act agreement with the government of China, which allows them to sue Canada if we were to enact laws contrary to their economic interests. Now, the reality of that is I'm looking forward to implementing a number of those laws if we're given a mandate by the public, and they can sue the government in Ottawa. There's no skin off of my nose. No skin off of our nose.
Do police departments in Canada investigate corrupt politicians? No.
I mean, one of the first phrases I learned in the RCMP is cover your own ass. That's what I was, CYA. And doing anything, even though it's very clearly mandated within the law and the scope of duty, but investigating those who control the budget and the purse strings, those investigations will shut down pretty quick. And for folks, and I've known a few in the RCMP who speak out about stuff, they get whacked pretty hard, and those people are pushed out and they lose their careers. So we definitely looking forward to seeing the back end of the RCMP and raising our own sheriff's department, and again seeing those types of equivalents in BC and the other western provinces.
Do you think the city of Surrey is making the right move by replacing the RCMP with a municipal police force?
Yes, 100%. Now, you've got your men and women with guns and the ability to take life, loyal and accountable to British Columbians, not to Ottawa. That's very important.
What would a separated Western Canada do about political corruption?
Outlaw it, and whether it be not just the criminal law, but within the Constitution itself. Even going to the quote-unquote mundane, the Supreme Court in Canada has ruled that it's not illegal for politicians to lie to the public. So we need to have those constitutional protections and then enforce it very strictly and very severely.
Should politicians then, when they promise something in an election, be forced to do it?
Yes, that's actually part of our platform with Wexit Alberta and Wexit Canada. So take, for instance, a situation where a politician promises to do something and they don't deliver. Well, that should, again, depending on how the public wants to go with it, either trigger another general election in which that politician's ineligible to run, or make them ineligible to run in future elections. Same sort of thing if a politician in Alberta, the NDP in 2015, did not campaign on a carbon tax and then sprung it on us. So that's lying by omission. And that needs to, that law, that carbon tax should have gone to a direct referendum, and obviously it wouldn't have passed. And other options include triggering a new general election. I mean, this is fraud. If somebody made an agreement and you voted for them, or you gave them money in business based on what they said they were going to do, and then they didn't do it, or they did the opposite, or they did something harmful to your interests that they never said that they would, then that's breach of a contract. And we have remedies for that. So we need to have remedy and accountability for that in politics as well.
Well, we saw in British Columbia, the Finance Minister Colin Hanson said, and I was at the news conference when he was asked, are you going to bring in the harmonized sales tax? And he said, that is not on our radar at this time. That's a direct quote. And weeks later, the election was held, and right afterwards, the BC Liberals brought in the harmonized sales tax, which was taken out with a referendum, and it's very hard to get recall legislation done because you have to get hundreds of thousands of signatures, but it was done. They did take years to get rid of something they put in within months, but still it happened. So do you think that kind of procedure is what's needed in Western Canada to make sure politicians do or don't do what they promised?
Yeah, something to that effect. I mean, we can be creative and we can be a bit business-minded about this. And I think whether it's a matter of the politicians registering, they say we're going to not bring in the harmonized sales tax, or we're not looking at that. And I think that we need to be a bit more involved and say, does that mean right now, or are there plans to implement it after the election? And we got to be a little bit more critical of our politicians and not just accept what they say. But in a situation where they say we're not bringing the harmonized sales tax, and then they do. I think if we register and catalog, or at least catalog those promises, it's a matter of take them to court. I think there's got to be a court procedure where you take them to court. The judge looks and says, "Did you promise this? Yes. Did you deliver it? No. Did you not promise? Did you say that explicitly you weren't going to do this? Yes. And then you did. Okay, boom. You lose your seat. You're done. You've got no public trust by election." And I think that those kinds of things, when you make it about the politician losing their job and their privilege, I think they're going to be less cavalier with their words.
What does separated Western Canada need to attract investment capital?
I think one of them, so strong surface and subsurface rights. For one, we've got huge shale deposits we need to develop. And giving people a share of the entrepreneurs and those who are ready to come out and do the work, a share in the development of that, and the profits, I think, that's huge. Real land ownership. I think, really strong property rights that, investors know that the government can't monkey around with. Really strong constitutional protections, strong development-oriented protections that say a government can't come in and impose a carbon tax if there's no, there's no guarantee that these measures are going to, give any tangible benefits to the environment, or to the point that the carbon that's being emitted right now is of no real detriment to the environment in the first place. Western Canada is a carbon sink with our boreal forests. We are a carbon sink, and it's China and other places like that are the real polluters. Plastic ban. So these kinds of things. So removing the ability of politicians to implement pseudoscience or pseudo-environmentalism, I think will give confidence that that investors can come here, they can develop, they can make a return on their investment, and I think that's a big piece. Again, deeper economic, diplomatic, and security relationship with the United States will be huge. And if we go along those lines, definitely Western Canada can become the Dubai of North America.
Are you planning more Wexit rallies?
Yes, we've got a big one coming up on January 11th at the Edmonton Legislature. So we just got back from Grand Prairie. It was a great event. We had folks from BC come down, from Dawson Creek and from Fort St. John. So it was our best initially attended event ever. We had 400 people come out for the first time in Grand Prairie, so that was huge. We've got the Referendum Now rally going on January 11th. We got folks coming from so far as from Ontario coming out to that rally. And then we'll be in Saskatchewan in the later part of January. We're doing a 4-stop tour on the 25th and 26th. We'll be in Prince Albert, Saskatoon, Yorkton, and Regina over that weekend.
How can people find out more about Wexit Canada?
If you go on, best thing to do, go on wexitcanada.com to take a look at our overview, our platform, get a sense of who we are and how to get involved. If you go on wexitevents.com, wexitevents.com. You'll be able to see what events we have going on. We don't have it up there yet, but we do March, April. We're looking at northern BC, so Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, looking to be up there to put on some good events.
Peter, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me again, Jim. It's always a pleasure.
My guest has been Peter Downing, founder of Wexit Canada, his website, wexitevents.com and wexitcanada.com. If you have any questions for Peter or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.